at them, some of these activities I've seen teachers use in the classroom. Or I've observed a class, and after the lesson, we've talked about how the lesson could have been improved in the follow-up session. And so I've just looked at, and all of them are looking at how do we connect the objectives, what are the objectives, what are the, how do we deliver it, and what materials did we use. And when I look at the lessons that we're going to look at, we have to look at how the opportunity for learning and how to use the target language. Did we create a situation where students had lots of opportunity to practice the language that we are trying to teach? It could be a grammar point, maybe a reading skill, or some writing activity. How do we keep the students engaged? And a student-centered classroom? And this can be difficult, I know, in large classes where you might be difficult. The furniture is difficult to move around. Like a room like this can sometimes be difficult to create a student-centered classroom, but I think we can do it. I think we can do it. And jazzing up your materials. This is a good expression. I like it because I understand what it means. If we have a book, how can we make it a little more fun? How can we make it so it's a little more engaging for students? If I have to use this book, what else can I do with it so that it's a little more interesting for students? All right, I'm going to put up an activity here. I'm going to ask you to be students, and I'm going to ask you to do it, all right? I'm going to put up a short reading, and I'm going to give you about 3 minutes to read the reading, okay? So while you're reading, no note-taking, okay? Just read. It's very short, okay? Just read the reading, and after that, I will tell you what. Now, this is a lesson out of a textbook that we don't use this in our program, but another teacher I was working with, she used this in her class in another school. So we're going to look at how we can take this exercise out of a textbook and make it a little bit more engaging for students, and also to maximize it. Okay? So everybody ready? Just going to read the reading. You have about 2 minutes to read it. A little bit bigger? Oh, I'm not sure how to. With your partner, please try to reconstruct the text. It doesn't have to be in order, but with your partner, try to recreate the text with the person beside you. And you can talk about it. Time's up. Work with your partner and see if you can, how much can you finish? How much can you reconstruct?
They are sisters.
Yeah, they are sisters.
Boston, on Monday, her sister-in-law, Jill, is going to take them to these universities. And Charles they're going to have fun.
Time's up. Now I'm going to give you a little bit of help. Okay, I'm going to give you a little bit of help. I'm going to give you a couple of questions and see if this will help you to finish, fill in the blanks of things that you didn't finish. Where do they live? How are they getting to Boston? Who is going to take them to the universities and the concerts? Where is the concert going to be? Very good, very good. What are they doing on Monday? And what kind of tour are they taking? Are they going to have a good time? Yes. Very good, wow. So let's take a look at the original exercise. Now the original instruction said, look at the picture and read the story. And of course, we're reading, and this is just a kind of another way to approach this activity. This comes in a unit on teaching the present future tense, the simple future tense. Okay, it's a grammar lesson, and it's in the middle of the lesson. But look at it and read the story. It's not that much fun for students, and they don't really get to practice the language that much. But when you do an activity like the Texas's text reconstruction, what other objectives or what other skills did you practice now? Speaking, listening, reading, pronunciation, vocabulary, grammar. Yeah, because you practice the grammar. So I found here's a simple way of taking something so short, and you could spend maybe an extra 40 minutes or 35 minutes using these materials, but getting a little bit more use out of them than just the simple exercise that is there. With your students, do you think your students could do this in the class? Yeah, they could probably do it, yeah. And you can make sure, you can give them some guidance with your sheet. And you don't need any materials, just a piece of paper to write. You don't have to make anything. It's very easy. They're doing all the work. Okay, you're not doing any work. That's what I like about finding things where I don't have to do too much work. The students should do the work, right? No, we shouldn't be doing it. And so when the teacher did it like this, she had a fantastic class. The students were very active. I was quite surprised they reproduced most of the text. They were able to recreate most of it. After they did that, then she had them go back to the original text and compare. Okay, did they get the grammar correct? Were they using were the sentences written correctly? And so it was a much more active activity, and it took a lot more class time, and the students, I think, were more engaged. So that's just one example. The second part, again, this one's a little better because the students, it says write the words They have to work with a partner and put the words in order and make questions. But again, how long do you think it will take students to do this? Yeah, it's very fast, right? They can finish it very quickly, and I think, oh, all the effort to photocopy and make this, let's use it more. So just other things you could do with this to just make the material last a little bit longer. So possibly one idea that she had was, this is a little bit of work for the teacher. She cut all the words and put them in an envelope and gave each group one envelope with the words. And they had to make seven questions with the words. And they were able to do it. Right? So she just wrote are and they and stay and going to and put them all in a big, and it was a contest, like a competition, students like competition, and the winning group got a little prize. So, and then that took about another 20 minutes to do, and the students were talking a lot, making the question, no, is goes before going to. No, this is an adjective. We put famous before university. So there's lots of discussion about the words and about the questions. So I think that that's a really simple way to extend this activity so that it's not over like that. It's over too quickly, and the students don't really practice the language that much. All right, so that's just one example, I think, of. Do you have any questions about this one? It's okay. So just in review, we did a lot more than read and make the questions, right? And I think you told me you practice your speaking, you practice pronunciation, vocabulary. You asked questions to your partner and asked for clarification. So that's good language practice and listening skills. And the delivery, I think it's more engaging. And we really exploited the materials to create a better learning opportunity for our students, not just read and answer the questions. Any questions about this activity, this kind of activity? Do you think you could do this you can try this in your class? No? Yes. Okay, all right, good. All right, let's look at the second one. Also a reading activity, but one thing I always find difficult is how to work with reading and comprehension questions. Students hate comprehension questions. Do you agree? Yes. They don't, it's boring. It's very boring answering 20 comprehension questions. So sometimes we have to do it, I think. Sometimes we have to do reading and comprehension because of the tests, but other times I think we can switch it up a little bit and do something a little bit different. So here's the Inuit people. This is a reading about the Inuit people of the north, northern Canada and Greenland. And it's a pretty low-level, upper beginner reading. And if you want, there's actually a wonderful place where you can get all of these readings. These are, it's by Paul Nation. Anybody know Paul Nation, who does a lot of work in vocabulary teaching? These are available for online for free to download, and you can copy. They're not copyright. They're copyright free. There are 20. These are speed readings actually, but we used it not as a speed reading. But you can find these on the internet and use them in your class. And if you just go to Asia Pacific speed readings for ESL learners, you'll find them there. 20 of them, and they're designed for lower level students. All the words in this exercise are from the general service list. They're the first 1,000 words of English, and so they're quite simple. Can I make this a bit bigger? Yeah. So it's a really great, so what it has the readings, and then it has the questions after. Okay? And they're all quite interesting readings. Does that help? I think it's Victoria University in New Zealand where you can find these. So it's a great reading, and it's perfect for our low intermediate level students. Paul Nation, yeah. He's a big guru of vocabulary teaching. So we looked at this reading, and we had a class which is, the students were not very motivated, and every time the teacher did reading, it was difficult and pulling teeth, and the students were not active. So we talked about how to make this more interesting. And I'm sure you've tried some of these techniques, but something so simple as cutting the reading up. Okay, we made a group of 5. Each person was given one piece of the reading. They could read it for homework. They were given it for homework. They had to come back, so if a group of 5 here, each of you has a different paragraph. You read it at home, and then you just retell the story. Okay, so if I have paragraph 1, I will tell my group about paragraph 1. I can't memorize it. You don't memorize it. I have to summarize it and speak. I can have notes, and I tell my group about the first chapter, the first paragraph. It's more about the Inuit people and where they live. Next person talks about their families, where they grew up. And the third person talks about this paragraph, 4th person, and 5th person. It was amazing to see how much more involved the students were by that simple activity, cutting the reading into pieces. They were much more interested in it. They were talking about it. A little bit what John was saying this morning. I think if you have a reason to read something and to share it, then it's more motivation to read it. And so I like to do a lot of jigsaw readings, and I think you probably learned a lot about jigsaw readings on your exchange programs. But they work. They really, really work. If you give students a responsibility or a job, they will do it. But if you ask them just to read this and answer the questions, not so exciting. So what we did with the questions after, you can do so many things with the questions. Simple thing. We put one question on a card, and we put question 1 here, question 2 there, question 3. We just put them around the room, and we said, go. And the students just completely were so much more interested in this because of that one small change. It was competitive, and they were moving. Right? So they went there, they answered question 1, and then they did question 6, and then they went to question 1, and there was no plan. It was just answer the questions. And same objective, but a little bit more active in the classroom. And I think you can do this in a small class. You can do it in a big class if you have more of a plan. Right? You could tell the students, okay, you go to 1, 5, 7, 9, 8, 6, and I tell you your numbers. And I tell you your number so that it's not chaos. And maybe somebody will have an injury or something, right? So you can make comprehension, reading comprehension a little more active. The other way you could do this, you can give half the class 5 questions, you can give the other half 5 questions, and then they can test each other. Okay, so I do the first 5, you do the second 5, and then we get together, and I ask you, and I test you, and I say to you, where do the Inuit people live? Yeah, okay, and so I can do it orally, I can have her write the answer, and so I'm the expert, I know the answer to question 1, and I will test to see if she knows it. Okay? And so there's simple ways to change the comprehension questions so that they're a little bit more exciting. So competition, jigsaw, give some people some questions, some people different questions. It forces them to interact, and it forces them to answer the question. I don't want to work with my partner and I don't know the answer. Right? So I want to make sure I know the answer. So just a simple, there's lots of things you can do with reading and exercise. You can, the other thing I did with this is this is multiple choice. You don't have to make it multiple choice. Okay? When we did it in groups, we did not make it multiple choice. We made it a little more difficult. It was just, where do the Inuit live? What did they make their houses of? We changed the questions a bit because I think the multiple choice was too easy. It's too easy. Okay, any questions? All right, so again, if we look at the original objective was just to read and answer questions. And I think that this activity does much more. Okay, the students learn to summarize the text. Okay, they have to give an oral summary. Their speaking skills, their reading skills, their listening skills. They have to ask questions. So if I'm giving the summary to my partner of my paragraph and she doesn't understand, she can ask me some questions. Where did they live? Oh, I didn't understand. Can you say that again? So there's lots of language practice in this kind of activity. Of course, the delivery is more engaging, and we use the materials to you can expand this material quite easily. Okay, I'm going to look at one more activity. This is a listening exercise. I think listening is a very difficult skill to teach, and a lot of research I've read says that listening is often not taught enough in the classroom, and listening skills of many students are very poor, and it's difficult. And it's also the other problem with listening is when we teach listening, we use a standard way of teaching listening. We introduce the topic, we give students some vocabulary, they listen again, they do answer some questions, and then we check the answers. It's kind of a standard way of teaching. But in real life, listening is not like that. Listening is very difficult in real life. It's not so linear, it's not so straightforward. And I think that's where students have difficulty. When they go in the real world, they're listening, even though they listen to hundreds of dialogues, they have a difficult time when they're in the supermarket or on the street. So I think one way to look at how we can, is to make it a little bit more real world listening. This is from the same book as the reading the first grammar exercise, and it's about Sashi's terrible flight. And in the book, the students listen and they answer some questions. I don't have the questions here, but that's the activity. Listen and answer the questions. So I think one way to change this is to do some pre-work. So what we thought about with this, we divide the class into two groups. And this group, you are all Sashi. This group, you are all her friend, her best friend. Okay? And the teacher, we made up little, very simple roll cards. Okay? And for Sashi, we wrote, lives in New York, and some facts about her, okay, and her terrible flight. For this group, we asked them to make some questions. Okay, so we gave them a situation. Sashi had a terrible flight. Asked her about the plane, the seats, the food, what else was there? The delays, and so we listed some points. And together they prepared the questions, and this group found